Hey guys. Today, I will give you my 16 reasons for not liking LeBron James. I know for sure that some of these reasons are yours as well. It is really no surprise that he has a lot of NBA fans who don't respect him at all. So let's get to it. Number 1, directly responsible for beginning of the trend of star players teaming up with one another in the prime of their careers, which resulted in the fact that today we have a situation where players are increasingly signing 1+1 contracts on the principle, I win the title in my first season with another star or two or I am leaving the team. Yes, back in the day stars were playing together as well, but in 90% of cases it was the product of good drafting and trades. Star players of before wanted to play against each other and compete. Today they want to play with each other, which is a huge difference in mentality/competitiveness. Number 2, unreal need to constantly praise himself. The great ones just don't do that, and for LeBron it became a habit. Such a need for a player of his caliber speaks volumes about his lack of humility, and there is a strong feeling that everyone who even have one bad thing to say about him is his worst enemy. Also shows lack of self-confidence that the greatest players never lack of. Number 3, flopping. After repeatedly stating that he plays aggressively and has no need to flop, that he is simply not one of those players, he also used to say that the reason for flopping is to protect himself and his body from any kind of injuries. We are talking about a player who weighed 206 centimeters at 125 kilograms in the prime of his career. Can any of you imagine Michael or Kobe flopping continuously? Me neither. Number 4, stat padding. Even when the game is completely lost, LeBron will tell his coach when to sub him. If the individual stats are not on his side, in 90% of cases we will watch LeBron on the floor regardless of the result and the decision of the coach. He is not going to let his numbers suffer, and he always wants you to have the impression that it is not his fault in defeats. Number 5, wherever he played, he did not help other players, above all, all-star teammates, to further raise their level of play. On the contrary, he would stifle them with selfishness and obsession with his own statistics. Perhaps the best example of this are Chris Bosh and Kevin Love. From such stars he made ordinary spot-up shooters. He was never ready to play without the ball in his hands throughout his career, although he is perhaps the most versatile player the league has ever seen. Let's remember the example from 1989, when Michael Jordan had a long conversation with Chicago Bulls coach Doug Collins at the time to play as a playmaker until the end of the season due to the lack of offensive help. In 41 games including playoffs he averaged 32.2 points per game, 9.4 assists, and 8.3 rebounds. Number 6, he loves to have absolute power and control over everything and is especially fan of GM. When things don't go as he imagined, he is ready to threaten the club's management to trade sometimes 90% of the roster just to take a shortcut to reach the goal without a sweat. If one teammate is not playing to his rules, rest assured that same player will be destroyed by the media and probably be traded sooner rather than later. Number 7, LeBron James wins and gets all the credit, LeBron James loses and his teammates take the blame. He has made his fan base believe in this obvious bullshit for years. Number 8, unprofessionalism and lack of leadership. He left games several times in his career before they ended without shaking hands with teammates/opponents. In 2010, as a member of the Cavs, James was accused by then GM Dan Gilbert of James simply quitting in games 2, 4, 5, and 6 in East semis against Boston Celtics. He also said, quote, "Shameful display of selfishness and betrayal by one of our very own." Number 9, obsession with Jordan and GOAT status. Although he has 6 defeats in the finals, you will not hear from him that he is to blame for the same. It is always his teammates. He also filmed Space Jam 2 just to be like him or even greater. He will play in the league until he reaches Kareem in points scored, and breaks other statistical records due to his longevity in the league just so that people, mostly the younger generation, see him as the greatest. He is using that old one, 1,000 times told lie equals truth, and it seems that it is becoming more and more popular with young people. Number 10, how do you love your home of Cleveland so much and then suddenly leave the city and your team in such a disgusting way in a national television drama show stating that you are taking your talent to Miami? Only to come back for a short period and leave yet another time to pursue more rings in LA. Former Bulls GM Jerry Krause once said, he, Jordan, never came to me and asked for other players. He never asked me to draft a player or trade for a player. He thought he was so darn good he could win without them. As soon as he got just one all-star player, named Scottie Pippen, he managed to take the Bulls to the Eastern Conference Finals against Detroit where they lost in the 7th game, and God knows what would happen if Pippen didn't have the terrible migraine that was the main cause of the terrible individual game. Shot 1 of 10, for 2 points, 4 rebounds and 2 assists. Number 11, we have already emphasized that when things are not going well for him, everyone else is to blame except him, and especially his players, coaches and everyone else in and around the club. With the following statement, he surpassed himself as well because he attacked an ordinary man or an NBA fan. All the people that was rooting on me to fail, at the end of the day they have to wake up tomorrow and have the same life that they had before they woke up today. They have the same personal problems they had today. I'm going to continue to live the way I want to live and continue to do the things that I want to do with me and my family and be happy with that. They can get a few days or a few months or whatever the case may be on being happy about not only myself, but the Miami Heat not accomplishing their goal, but they have to get back to the real world at some point. This statement was made by James fresh off the Game 6 loss to Dallas and shouldn't be mistaken for anything less than a blatant shot at NBA fans. He clearly spoke his mind and put himself above, for lack of a better term, average person. Number 12, you can't be one of the best basketball players of all time if you don't exist on the defensive side of the floor. Apart from the obvious reasons for entering the later basketball years, there is also this eternal obsession with individual stats. In order to maintain his numbers, something had to suffer, in this case it is the defensive part of the game. So much for the versatile LeBron who guards all 5 positions. If chase down blocks are a measure of good defensive player, then, James is the best defender of all time. Too bad the scale is much more extensive, right? LeBron doesn't seem interested in playing defense at all because he's saving his energy for offense. We all remember the situation when even his own teammates pushed him during actions to do simple defensive tasks in the form of closing down the opponents. What is now called a two-way player used to be quite a common thing for most of the starting 5 on an NBA team. It was rare to see someone relaxing in defense. Some players were just not blessed with athleticism which would allow them to be decent defenders, but rarely did someone lack the effort on that part of the floor, as we have today where most of the players just don't give a damn about it. Number 13, he is afraid of competitiveness, but that is no news. Let's remember the promise to the fans that he will participate in the slam dunk competition. It has never happened and now it is obviously too late for such a thing. Today's great players, unlike their predecessors, are afraid to see who is the best at it, and LeBron is their leader in such thinking. Number 14, hypocrite China. Remember how he attacked anyone who would speak up against China in order to protect his financial interests with Nike and the NBA business ties with the country? Disgusting. Number 15, LeBron James and Dwayne Wade mocking Dirk Nowitzki's illness. Followed by a thorough ass-whooping with LeBron nowhere to be found. Number 16, Mr. Excuse and Nebulae. Do we remember the first game of the 2014 final Miami vs San Antonio? Mr. Excuse was bothered by the unbearable heat in the arena, so he left the floor, due to cramps, 4 minutes before the end of the game. That's not all. In 2018 he was in the final against Golden State, and also after the first game he suffered an injury to his right hand after he hit the blackboard in the locker room. Of course, nothing was known about it until he was later swept away in the finals, and then, like the real king after a whole century since the last game at the press conference, he came in a cast and thus again, directly showed obsession of being the main focus of things. Should I mention Jordan's pizza poisoning game in Utah and his magnificent performance when his teammates needed him the most? I know. He is not my GOAT, that's for sure. Thanks for watching the video, sub, or not, smiley face.